I was introduced to Afro-Peru through the voice of Susana Baca. I was searching for a last-minute Christmas present, and I found a CD called The Soul of Black Peru. Now, I have to confess, before that day, I didn't even know that there was a Black Peru, and I certainly didn't think Peru had soul. At least, this kind of soul. For me, Peru was the great Inca civilizations, Machu Picchu, the Andes. And yet, 300 years ago, the capital of Lima was considered a black city. To find out what happened to all those black people, I'm starting with the only one I've ever heard of. Susana Baca was born and raised in a seaside town outside Lima. Today, she's an international music star, but she's devoted years to researching Afro-Peruvian music traditions.
I began with my mother. I asked her to tell me things about her life. After that, I interviewed my aunties, and after that I traveled through Peru, especially along the coastline where the Afro-Peruvians had settled. I almost reached the border with Ecuador, searching for music, poetry, verses.
Susana told me that she didn't even realize that she was black and that this might make her different from her classmates until she was in high school.
Terrible. Terrible. It was terrible. Something happened that was very ugly and very sad for me. When they told us in school that the teacher was going to come to choose the girls who danced very well, I thought, well, I'm going to be chosen because I dance. She only chose the white girls. The Indian girls and the black girls did not belong to the dance group.
What in your environment gave you the strength to overcome racism like that?
Our family gathered on Sundays. I will go to where they were playing music, to the uncles playing guitar, the aunties singing, and there I was in the middle. That was my salvation. And then happily, when I won the Grammy, a lady said, because of her, the world knows about us. This was so beautiful for me to hear.
Bravo. Bravo. The world knows about Susana Baca, but like me, it probably doesn't know very much about the estimated 2 million other Afro-Peruvians who live here. I want to find out who they are, where they come from, how they've contributed to this country, and how they're treated. How is their history different than that of Afro-Mexicans? My guide is Carlos Aguirre, a native of Peru and a professor of history and Latin American studies at the University of Oregon.
The street we are in is part of the neighborhood called Malambo. Malambo was the name given to the slave market, where slaves were brought after they arrived in Callao, the port west of Lima.
The Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro brought the first slaves to Peru in 1527. Legend says that upon seeing the first Africans, some of the Native Americans began to rub their skin, trying to remove their blackness. As the Spanish ravished Peru's gold, silver, and emeralds, the diseases they carried decimated the indigenous people, just as in Mexico. To replace them, first on sugar plantations and then in the silver mines, the Spanish imported at least 100,000 African slaves. And within 100 years, Peru became the richest region in the New World. At its height, how black was Lima?
between 30 and 40% black. And many people considered Lima a black city because, you know, they were surrendered by blacks wherever they went.
Surrounded by blacks. Yeah.
But
Black people were especially conspicuous in the city of Lima, where they were day slaves, skilled craftsmen who contracted their own jobs and gave a portion of their income to their masters. With the surplus, they could buy things, including, over time, their own freedom.
they were water carriers, they were street vendors, they were domestic servants, they also became artisans.
One of the largest religious processions in all of Latin America was inspired by the artistry of an unnamed Angolan slave. Painted in the 17th century, this image of Christ is called El Señor de los Milagros, the Lord of the Miracles.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Yeah, look at that lit up.
There was an earthquake in the 17th century. The whole area was destroyed except the wall where the Christ was painted. This was attributed to a miracle.
I think it's a miracle.
It is
I
a
think it's a miracle that the brother painted it in the first place.
And in fact, it survived not one, but several earthquakes. And so they started worshiping this image, and it became a cult, mostly among the Afro-Peruvian population, but then gradually it expanded. And then today, during the month of October, they take a copy onto a procession followed by hundreds of thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands, huh? So that's it, painted by a slave from Angola. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Another famous painter left a documentary view of black life in Lima over 100 years later.
Ooh, look at that.
How beautiful. Look. I am so nervous. It's the first time. It's very exciting.
It's your first time seeing the original.
Sí, es mi primera vez con
It's the first time I've held an original painting by Pancho Fierro.
Pancho Fierro, ¿no?
Pancho Fierro, a free black man, painted images known to every Peruvian schoolchild.
Oh, look at that. That is cool.
Maribel Aralucia is showing me his rare original paintings.
He has left us the most important images of the 19th century. He shows us a society in a way that we could probably not see in documents.
What's this?
This is a funeral. The deceased, a man. This is the widow. She's crying.
Were the pallbearers black then?
It is a custom in Peru. It is highly criticized nowadays, but it continues to be the right thing to do.
Since slavery,
Up to today.
pallbearers have been black.
Sí.
Oh my, this is like a picnic.
It is very beautiful, isn't it? This is a typical dessert, and it is in the hands of Afro
They
women.
were both slaves?
No se puede diferenciar.
You cannot tell the slaves from those who were not slaves, because they all took part in the same customs. They wore nearly the same clothes.
Bueno, ¿qué tenemos acá?
Well, what do we have here?
Wow, look at that.
Impresionante, exuberante.
Exuberant.
And three races, Indian, black, white.
This scene is fantastic. It shows us three women, but the one that takes center stage is the Afro woman.
He was an anthropologist,
Oh, ya.
in effect, huh?
Sí. Él estuvo en la
He was in the street all the time. He painted as he looked at what was going on around him.
Have these pictures changed the way you understand colonial society in Peru?
Sí, definitivamente.
Yes, definitely. Because when we think about slaves, we always think about plantation slaves, chained at their feet, constantly beaten up. But Pancho Fierro gives us a lot to regain the past.
Recuperar pasado. La esclavitud en Lima.
Slavery in Lima was more relaxed, more flexible. I think Pancho Fierro wanted to show us the happiness that the Afro population could have.
25% of the slaves in Peru lived in Lima during the colonial period and would have had this more relaxed experience of slavery. So slavery in Peru was similar in this sense to slavery in Mexico, but very different than slavery in the United States. But was this truly the experience of the typical slave in Peru? To find out, I asked Professor Aguirre to take me to a hacienda.
For those working in the fields, suffered really harsh conditions. It was even hard to feed their own children. Their best shot at being free was to run away. And
From the 16th through the 20th centuries, haciendas dotted the coast. The Hacienda San Jose is 2 hours south of Lima. It probably housed about 800 slaves, hundreds more than the average hacienda. Though more than 300 years old and damaged by a recent earthquake, a lot of evidence still survives of the harshness of plantation slavery.
Every hacienda had a place to punish slaves. They were branded, whipped, sometimes left there without any food. Punishment was a mechanism to enforce order and social control. Just imagine a riot or a rebellion of these slaves.
As in Mexico, and about at the same time, revolutionaries in Peru found thousands of plantation slaves ready to abandon their fields and join the War of Independence, lured by promises of freedom and equality. Simón Bolívar has to win the contest, hands down, for the most statues in the Western Hemisphere. A Venezuelan aristocrat with a special talent for leading revolutions, Bolívar liberated 6 Latin American countries from the Spanish. In 1821, together with General José de San Martín, he freed Peru. But unlike their Mexican counterparts, Bolívar and San Martín didn't keep their promises to end slavery after independence. Slave owners themselves, they passed laws granting freedom only when slaves reached certain ages. First it was 18, then it was 21, then finally it was 50. Not for another 33 years, in 1854, would another leader, Ramón Castilla, ultimately free the remaining Afro-Peruvian slaves. After abolition, not a lot changed. Just as in the former Confederate states after the Civil War, most of the former slaves became sharecroppers on the very same land they had always worked. 150 years later, there's still many people living in the same places, doing the same work that their slave ancestors did.
You know, I've never been this close to cotton before.
First time?
Could you show me how to pick cotton?
So the cotton comes off clean, without a straw,
Ah,
without the little leaves.
I got a lot of leaves, so I'm bad. What time do you start picking cotton every day?
From 4 a.m. in the morning until 6 p.m. in the evening.
Could I ask you how much you are paid?
14 soles a day.
About $5 a day. Oh, that's hard work.
It's hard, but we have to do it.
Because of the fact that we are in need, we have to do it.
How old were you when you started picking cotton, when you learned how to pick cotton?
I was 7.
Do you think your children will pick cotton too?
No, we don't want that for them. It's hard work.
Gracias.
Thank you. And take this cotton ball as a souvenir. Cotton from Chincha.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's get rid of this. I got my cotton, that's right.
These workers live in the black town of El Carmen. Most of the town's inhabitants are descended from the slaves of the Hacienda San Jose. Still suffering from extreme poverty, only 27% of the Afro-Peruvian people even finish high school, and only 2% get a college education. In recent years, this historically black community has reinvented itself as the authentic heartbeat of Afro-Peruvian music. The Balambrosios are like the Jackson 5 of Afro-Peruvian music. Except there's 15 of them. Their late patriarch, Amador Balambrosio, helped to lead the revival of Afro-Peruvian music in the 1960s. Today, there's a party going on.
Why is it important to you to preserve the traditions of the Afro-Peruvian community, especially today in the world of hip-hop and reggae?
We have an ancestral heritage of African music that goes back 350 years.
De hace 350 años.
We are a family with roots, and we still preserve the black presence. The day we play another type of music, that we're featured on giant posters and we look really good, that will be the day that we're making black culture disappear in this place.
haciendo que la cultura negra desaparezca en este lugar.
Do you feel like you're fighting racism, that you're standing for black power?
Racism is everywhere. The blacks are labeled as being those who work in the doorways of hotels or in a restaurant. Or, this black guy dances really well. That's all he's good for. He's not very intelligent. I think that music gives you the strength to fight for what you're saying.
Luchador desde lo que te toca decir.
Despite the kind of pervasive racism that Chebo describes, last year, the Peruvian government made an unprecedented public apology to its black citizens. We extend an historical apology to Afro-Peruvian people for the abuse, exclusion, and discrimination perpetrated against them since the colonial era until the present. While the government statement doesn't mention slavery explicitly, Peru is the only Latin American country to have apologized to its black citizens for historic racial discrimination, starting in the colonial period, which is when slavery started. I wonder how black activist groups feel about this unprecedented act.
It's not enough to say sorry, no? We need to translate it in public policies to Afro-Peruvian people. I believe that Peru could be the most racist country in Latin America.
Monica Carrillo runs LUNDU, the Center for Afro-Peruvian Studies and Advancement. LUNDU campaigns against the kind of racism that black people here encounter every day.
There is a character, the name is Negro Mama. Mama in Peruvian, it's not mama, it's not mother, it's mama, it's like stupid. So the name of the character is Negro Mama. And he paints his face.
He's white?
He's white. For example...
That's, oh my God, that's La Negro Mama?
Yes.
So he's playing a stupid black man.
Yeah. And he used black gloves like monkey. And he walk like monkey too.
That's terrible.
This is Negro Mama, no? And all the time he's stealing or he's trying to rape women.
This is like minstrel shows.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting, but Lundu organized protests against Negro Mama 2 months ago, and it was removed from the air, but he backed 1 week ago.
It came back?
He came back.
Why did it come back?
Yeah, because they say that we are attacking the free speech.
They accuse you of censorship.
Yes, but now we are trying to organize an international campaign with institutions in the United States, of course.
You can sign me up.
Yes, it was the first time in the Peruvian history that a racial discussion was so big and about Afro-descendant people too. But at the same time, people spit on my face.
They did?
Yes. No, there are people try to, ¿cómo se dice? Run over?
Yeah, run over.
Yeah. These kind of situations you can feel in Peru. You can feel every day, but in this context, maybe we are living a more dramatical problem.
I've seen some racist things on television in my lifetime. Alfalfa and buckwheat from our gang. Amos and Andrew, of course, at the top of the heap, but I have never seen anything as racist as La Negra Mama, shown each week in prime time here in Peru.
Black Peruvians themselves are criticizing racist stereotypes in popular culture. Yet back in Mexico, that kind of criticism still comes largely from outsiders.
Cheche, yesterday I saw La Negra Mama for the first time. Do you think it's important to get it off the air?
I think that in a free country, the fight is not whether you're against it or not, because if they get it off the air, they are going to give it more importance. But if people don't pay attention to it, don't give it value, then gradually it is going to start disappearing.
Cheche Campos and I have traveled similar paths, albeit in different countries. We're the same age, we've been influenced by the same authors, and we've both spent our careers as professors.
How is Peru different for a black person today than it was when you and I were students?
I think it has changed significantly, because before we were totally invisible. Now we are visible, and after many years, I believe it is not an issue of finding Africa. It is an issue about finding Peru. At its depth, it's about finding integration.
Y es buscar la integración.
The future of blacks is multiculturalism in Peru.
De hecho, considero que las organizaciones.
That's right. I believe that the black organizations have to worry more about other aspects than waste energy on the fight against discrimination and racism. The fight for development and culture is a bigger fight that, in the long run, brings better results.
I understand.
Obama would not have been able to take on the presidency if he hadn't been above the issue of color, because if you are obsessed with color, you are the president of the black people.
I wonder if Cheche is right. Mexico and Peru, and of course the United States, are so much richer for their multicultural heritage. And without a doubt, the entire world is headed towards even more heterogeneity. But without acknowledging where each of us has come from, what's the foundation upon which a multicultural society rests? In both Mexico and Peru, black history and culture have been traditionally undervalued, and black people continue to be discriminated against, denied equal access to the societies that their ancestors did so much to create. Afro-Latinos have a double identity as citizens and culturally. They're both black and Latino. Chebo Balambrosio invited me to a beautiful celebration, his niece's quinceañera.
This is the traditional rite of passage for 15-year-olds all throughout Latin America. Just marvelous to see it done in a black community here in Peru, so aware of the kitschiness of these rituals and self-conscious about it and playing with it. It's so multicultural. Music from Italy, music from Mexico, salsa music, and music from, of course, Afro-Peru.
After her father slips on her first high-heeled shoes, she'll dance all night with family and friends. The marvelous way in which her community has modified the quinceañera reflects how her ancestors have shaped this country. My only hope is that she'll continue to wear her double heritage proudly, that of a Peruvian who also happens to be black.
To find out more about how the people of Latin America embrace their African history, visit pbs.org. To order Black in Latin America on DVD for $29.99 or to pre-order the companion book for $26.95, call 1-800-336-1917 or write to the address on your screen.